course. Okay. Thank you all for joining. My name is Roberto.
And I'm Lydia.
And we're going to talk about, well, these kind of things. It's
Design.
more a field.
Design.
I'm here, I don't know why, honestly. But, well, we can get started.
Yeah. So first of all, we worked together for some time. And as a designer myself, and Roberto, a developer, we learned that there is some things that could be improved process-wise and communication-wise. And this is what we will talk about today.
Oh, that was the argument there.
Yeah. So first, let's remember together what's the difference between print design, that is statical design, that will never change with no interaction, and what we are interested in, digital. With digital, everything is always changing because it's under the user influence. It's under user flows.
So that means that actually we can change how the app works, and not only we as users are actually why the app exists, and we make the app, right?
Exactly. It's not something that you just watch statically. But here we talk about Android, and Android, it's not easy. Let me tell you why. Whoa, fragmentation, more than 18,000 different devices. Wow, that's great, that's a lot if you compare with iOS.
But remember that this is not an excuse. So we have a lot of devices, but we have some very interesting point, right?
Yeah, but we have not only a lot of devices, we have also a lot of screen densities, because let's add some fun, you know? So it's really difficult, and at the end, as a result, there is no real control. I mean, even if you want, you will never, ever be able to test your design and your user experience on all the devices and all the densities. So you have to find other solutions. What can we do? Let's think user. Let's center our app on the user. The user will trigger the flow, so everything should be focused on him.
Yeah, so actually, the user, well, we're talking about user-centered design. That means that everything we do, we must do it keeping in mind how the user will actually use your app, or maybe how we actually expect the user to use our app. So the simpler it is, the faster the user will understand how to use it, and it will be less bad. Yeah, this one does not work, so I have to shout. If you don't hear me, just tell me, and I will raise my voice even more. Yeah, I'm sorry, but if I get nearer, I will cover the projection. Sorry.
Yeah, we have a technical problem. Excuse us.
I didn't know that I couldn't detach the microphone, sorry.
Anyway, so we have to focus on the user. That's the main thing. Because if you don't think about flows, well, your app will just be an image on a phone, and it's not interesting at all. Your UI should be always dynamic. Because, again, the user will provide the interaction that will trigger the flow. And remember, user is in control. So now that we know we should focus on the user, we can see how we can achieve it, UI-wise. First of all, and I will never repeat it enough, be native. Remember that the people, the user, are Android users. They know how they use their phone. Every day, they just check their emails, the different apps they have, and they know exactly how a button should look, where they are going to find the different information, etc., etc. If you are not native, if, for instance, you just give some iOS design on Android, the user will be lost, and they will just drop your app. So be native. It's really the first thing to have in mind.
Yeah, but this doesn't mean that you cannot add your personal touch.
We will come to it.
Okay, sorry. Let's go then.
Let's go. Use also animation. The way the user will use your app should be really smooth and easy for him. And if you add some nice and subtle animation, the feeling will be better.
Yeah, but there's a guideline for that, right?
There is guideline. Oh, I guess you all know about material design. If you check the guidelines, you have also a series of very, very nice animation, very simple to use, also code-wise. And you should use them. You should really use them. Don't forget to put feedback. It's really important. Because, for instance, if your user is filling a form and he tried to push the button, but there is some information missing and nothing is happening, he will be like, yeah, the app is crashing, it's really bad, I will download another one. If the button is disabled until all the form is filled, he will understand he needs to fill it first, and then he can access to the next screen. So please, please, please think about feedback. It's really important. And even if you have like really beautiful app, if there is no feedback, it will not be a good experience for your user.
Yeah, as an example, take for instance a normal login form. Okay, one of the first things we might, well, end up doing is that if you don't put the username or the password, it will tell you, hey, I need something. Another way to avoid triggering the error is keeping the buttons disabled, well, at least the login button disabled, until all the data we need is fulfilled. This way, the user will be forced to actually fill everything in order to trigger something else.
Exactly. It's up to you to choose how you give feedback, but you have to know that you should give feedback. And also, be creative. I mean, it's important to be native, to add native feedback and stuff, but there should be also your personal touch in the app. It's really important, and that will make the difference from your app and a competitor app. And to be creative and to do beautiful apps, you can use material design. It's great, really. And why is it so good? Because first, it's super easy to understand, and it's adaptive. That means that nice people who created material design were like, okay, this should adapt perfectly from small screen to large screen. And they provided solution for all the screens. And it's native Android solution. That means that if you use the pattern, your user will be in a familiar environment, and they will know how to use the app in one, which is good. They will not have to search for a next screen. There is also, thanks to this very, very nice semi-flat design style, a real hierarchy of the content, which is not always so easy to have when you think about flat design. But here you have this subtle shadow, and all the material design is based on this metaphor of paper, that if, for instance, you imagine to have two paper slides overlapping each other, you will have this subtle shadow on the first one. All the material design is based on this concept, so you can very easily provide a hierarchy of the content that will guide the user, because he will know what's the main action, the primary action, the secondary action, and it will be smooth and easy and a good experience for him.
Yeah, an example of this could be a list of cards that should be elevated, well, we all know that, and also a primary action that would be, let's say, a floating action button. So providing two different elevations, you will provide also a hierarchy of your content. In that way, the user will notice right away what he shall do in that activity. Yeah. So it's pretty easy, but not really easy, okay? But, well, it's pretty straightforward. Once you get it, you can make your app really nice and also simple to use, because the user know how to use their system, and why should they relearn to use an app? So, I mean, I'm lazy and I will never do that, honestly.
Exactly. I know you are lazy.
Yeah, I knew that.
And last thing, but not least, material design is just beautiful. You have a great work that has been done with the color palette, with the different, the design of the icons, the proportion of the layout. You have everything documented. It's really easy to use and access the guidelines. You even have templates that you can directly download and as a designer use with Illustrator, for instance. So please go for it. I will show you a good example of material design use. It's with this app called Evernote. As you can see, well, it's a bit big,
I don't think they can actually see it.
Yeah, well, anyway,
it's a little blurry than we expected.
Yeah, anyway, they manage to adapt the design from small screens, phones, to large screen, where, of course, more information is visible, but also on the watch. And they were very smart, because on the watch they only use micro interactions, which is the purpose of the watch. Again, you should not try to do exactly the same app on the watch and on the phone or tablet. So yeah, for me it's a good example. The design is very clear, and the user can easily access what he wants in the app. We will see another example here with OneFootball. You can see how the designer defined breakpoints. and key screens. Because when you want to design from first small screen and then larger screen, you have always to keep in mind that your design will evolve. It will not be the same. Otherwise, you will just get exactly the same thing than the phone on the tablet. And it will be not interesting because you have much more space. So you can display other information like the result of the last match, how the team was on the field, etc., etc., etc. And yeah, you wanted to say something?
Oh, no, well, actually, I was more interested about the idea of key screen. I mean, here we can slide and see the different data, and there's something else. So maybe you can explain me a bit more about the key screen and what they are, because I'm not really used to that.
Key screen are like main screen that you will define when you do your design. That means you will do, for instance, one design for a phone and one design for tablet to adapt it. And you will provide guidelines around them to define how the screen should look on this main screen and what will be the case for the screen in between, defining how the margin will evolve, for instance, or what will be the transition between key screen 1 to key screen 2, and so on. And that's really important as a designer to always think about the other screen size version.
Yeah, as a developer, this will be also a nightmare because you will have to deal with fragments. And I personally hate fragments thanks to someone who showed me that they're bad. But well.
Let's continue. Hierarchy of the content matters. It's really important that you guide the user and that you show, for instance, with here the use of a floating action button, that the primary action here is to write an email. It's what you aim to do when you open Gmail, because if it's just to read the email, you can open it directly from the notification. So yeah, it's really important that design-wise you show exactly what the next action is.
Yes, well, it's also worth noting that the content that normally is in the navigation drawer for Gmail is actually at the side in the tablet version, and it's pretty easy to understand what will be your next action. I mean, on the phone they have a really small space, so they have to hide something. But on the tablet you don't have this problem. I mean, maybe you have more than enough space to show stuff. So, well, that's why most probably the floating action button is in the middle. Because, well, it makes sense that
yeah, it
you
should
can
be
write
accessible
from the list and not from the conversation itself. That is pretty nice.
It is. But to achieve this thing, we have first to implement. And it's not always easy to implement and to have something similar to the design, believe me. My experience was not always very good. Because designer and developer, most of the time, are not speaking the same language. As designer, we come with pixel, perfect design, with nice margins and stuff, and they are just like, no, we talk about DPs, and your design will never look the same. You have no control.
No, well, this is not totally true, though.
It's true. You are mean.
No.
You are mean people.
No, that's not true. Actually, if you work together, and by working together, I mean sitting at the same table, you
communicating.
can achieve something similar on a lot of devices. The problem is that you have to do that. There's no other way around.
Yeah, and I believe it should even start before the design part. It should start when you have some idea about the flow, about the user experience. You should first sit with the developer together and check if it's feasible, what would be the cost, time and resource. If it's native also, because most of the time, you developer, they know their platform. For Android, they are Android users. They are reading a lot of articles about Android. They know, so you can rely on them. Please, talk with the developers. Don't be just on your corner and then wait for him.
Yeah, I would say the same about designer, but most of the time they bite. So
no,
I'm a bit afraid.
We bite, but it's also true that sometimes we tend to say, okay, design is our job. You don't know anything about it. I don't want to hear. And it's really a mistake. It's really a mistake. Because if you want to really build together a good product, you have to do teamwork, really. And it will also help you to learn more as a designer about native pattern on the platform you are working on, what is really Android and not iOS, because maybe as a designer you work for different clients and you have also to work for iOS or Windows, and so you are always jumping from one pattern to the other. So it will help you anyway. The process will be smoother and you will gain ownership on this process.
Yeah, and also remember that at the end, the designer will still be waiting for the sanity check. So,
yeah.
well, that's a pain, you all know that. But you can mitigate it if, again, you work together.
Yeah.
That means that while you code, they are there. I know it can be a bit creepy, but after a while you get used to it and you can avoid most of the pain in the end.
It's like a peer-to-peer programming, basically, but with a developer and a designer. We just sit together and we exchange about the design. We just like change little values to see if it looks better or not, and it's really the best process I tried so far. But teamwork is great, but never forget that you have to provide guidelines. Even if you communicate all over the process with the developer, you cannot have all the values in your head, and at some point you really need the guidelines for him.
Yeah, I recall once, while I just started working with Lydia, well, she provided me with very detailed guidelines, so all the colors, all the dimensions, the paddings, text height, and I didn't save them on my computer.
It was very bad, very bad.
And it was painful. It was the worst 5 minutes of my life. I will never forget our guidelines anymore. Actually,
yeah. You should be afraid of the whip. So, yeah, but when you provide guidelines, please be precise and flexible, because of course you are doing your design with pixels, and now you have to talk about DP, so you have to agree with the developer first what density you will use, if you use XHDPI or MDPI, etc., etc. And please also mention the pixel value near the DP value, because if he needs to convert again, he needs the pixel to have like precise values. And of course, at some point, sit together. Not only guidelines and then you leave the developer on his corner. No. You sit together, you check together, because you will have to adapt your content. It 100% sure that you will not be able to have exactly the same design that what you defined, because of what we said before, that there is fragmentation on Android and different densities. So yeah, just sit together one afternoon, 2 days, the time you need, and do this pair programming-like style with your developer. And at the end, your favorite, Roberto? The sanity check. The sanity check is a way to have an overview of the design and check screen by screen how the design and the experience are reflected by the code, and to see all the little details, and to ask your developer to redo some stuff, and they really hate it, but it's important.
Yeah, well, I remember a project in which we didn't follow this kind of teamwork, and after a while, even if I implemented the design, then nearly possible to our guidelines, well, the sanity check was a pain, because of course our design was good on the PDF, but on different devices, well, it was not the same, because maybe on a Nexus 4 it was perfect, but on a Nexus 5 would have looked narrow. So the only way is really to sit together and avoid all the pain that will come after, because if you do it earlier or later, well, it will catch you. There's no way to escape this.
Yeah, and it's also a way to test the app, to test the UI and the UX on some main devices. Of course, all the Nexus, it's a good example. It's from Google, and we can rely on them. But also maybe unexpected devices, and see how the UI is living and what we could fix, even if we know we will never have control. So yeah, as a conclusion, please remember, there is no pixel perfect design. It's sad, but it's true. You have to find other way to provide nice design and a good experience. You have to think at adaptive design. It's like web in a way, but for mobile, you have to focus always on the user and work as a team. It's really, really important, and I will underline once again, to communicate inside the team, especially between designer and developer. And I have the feeling it's not a reality right now. And at the end, your app will be great, hopefully. And that's it.